Folks, we're in absolutely unprecedented territory now that James Gunn, who is head of DC Studios, is coming out and demolishing scoopers. So let's talk about that right now. Hi, my name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about this absolute blow-up situation that happened a number of hours ago on Twitter, where Geekositymag.com, who is owned and operated by Mikey Sutton, by his own description, scooper extraordinaire, and at this point, I think absolute BS artist, put out an article titled Henry Cavill's New Contract Includes Superman TV Appearances. Now, you need to pay attention to that word. Pay attention to the word contract, because as you can see directly underneath that, oh, who's that responding? Oh, yeah, it's James Gunn, who says, I'm not sure if you're purposefully lying or being taken advantage of by someone lying to you. But as I've stated on here before, no one knows what is happening at DC Studios right now other than me and Peter. That would include writing up any new contracts for anyone at this point. Now, you got to understand that when it comes to this whole scenario involving Henry Cavill and involving everything to do with Superman and what's going on with DC Studios, Mikey and Sil Abdul, they have been very much trying to argue that this is what's going on, that this is happening. It's been happening for a while. It's all just taking a little bit of time to get there. Obviously, Superman popping up in Black Adam was kind of meant to be a big deal. But if you look at the data, if you actually really follow the data that I talk about in Hollywood After Dark, you actually know that Superman returning in Black Adam didn't move the needle, lowered its initial box office projections, and failed to move the movie in any considerable fashion, because a month after its release, today, it is now on PVOD for $20. Check it out if you haven't seen this. It's an okay movie. But there's a lot going on with the Scooper game right now, and James Gunn is out here just kind of capping mofos. So this is the article in question. Again, pay attention to the title. Henry Cavill's new contract includes Superman appearances. Saying here, Henry Cavill's return as Superman extends to TV as well. Without a doubt, Henry Cavill's Superman cameo in Black Adam post-credit scene electrified DC fans. I mean, it did, and then the general audience didn't care. And even DC fans at this point are like, we just want to know definitively what's happening. Going on to say, after all, for years, certain media outlets circulated false rumors that Henry Cavill had finished with the character. He wasn't, not even close. He may not have been done with the character. And by his own admission, Henry Cavill wasn't done with the character. But Warner Brothers was done with Henry Cavill. I say this following the disastrous release of 2017's Justice League. It fundamentally damaged Superman portrayed by Henry Cavill, as well as Batman portrayed by Ben Affleck. There's a reason why both guys were kind of yeeted out of the roles in different ways, but now they're back for cameos or something. We don't quite know. It's all kind of up in the air, but we don't know, and that's the thing we have to remember here. Mikey goes on to say that he scooped Cavill would come back to DC March 3rd, 2020. And he never wavered. Of course, when you're throwing shit at the wall before as the talk of the Snyder Cut was being percolated on the internet, there was a lot more talk of it happening at that time. Right around that particular moment is when Jim Lee was at the Chicago Comic-Con C2E2, and he had mentioned Snyderverse, or maybe the DCEU by name or something like that. He had hinted at something happening that got people talking about it. There was a word that he used, and that's basically what Mikey was talking about here. But at the time, people didn't know what was going on, and neither did Mikey, because he doesn't, but he just throws a lot against the wall to see what sticks. Moving on here, he does say that this is where he references another outlet, Small Screen. He says, Cavill is freeing up his schedule per Small Screen. Warner Brothers Discovery plans to keep Superman quite busy. Edward Lauder wrote, we were informed that at the moment, the plan is to have Cavill Supes turn up in his standalone movies, crossover films, and also some TV shows. That's a lot, but it sounds like DC Studios is putting a lot of weight behind Cavill's Man of Steel. And he also references the video by Small Screen, Superman's upcoming projects. Now, looking at this article here, which came out a couple days ago on November 18th, 2022, I did a Control F for contract. Because if the article that Mikey was putting out there saying Cavill's new contract, well, then this article that he is clearly referencing and will be also using as a deflection, as a cover following the James Gunn blowout, then obviously this article would have mention of contract. It actually doesn't, which then leads me to take a look at the video that they put out for Superman's upcoming projects. Clearly, this video, which was also featured in the Geekosity article as a further way to cement the things that Mikey is saying as further corroboration, because that's how they have to do it, then you would have cameo written in there. Well, it turns out, no, you don't, because I looked it up here. Contract would be written in there, not cameo. But what it says here is that in recent months, there had been a lot of mystery surrounding Henry Cavill's Superman in the DCU between contract and cameo rumors. It's been difficult to nail down the fate of DC's Golden Boy. So that's one mention of the word contract. But what about the actual video itself? Does the script of the video mention Henry Cavill's new contract and what it entails? Well, it turns out that in the first 3 seconds of the video, the only time that contract is mentioned, and you see contract 2 out of 2 up there on the top of the screen, and that is actually from the previous image I showed you, and this image says Superman in the DCU between contracting and cameo rumors has been difficult to nail down the fate of DC's Golden Boy. Oh yeah, the exact same thing that is in the video description. That's obviously an SEO way of trying to get as much data out there as they possibly can, but that is what's happening here. Now, going back to this particular article, and I don't know why my text messed up there on the screen, but we have 3 instances of the word contract being used in that article. The first one is the title, Henry Cavill's new contract includes Superman TV appearances. Then the next break, which says Henry Cavill's new contract includes Superman TV appearances. That seems kind of weird. And then finally, before referencing the Superman video from small screen, Henry Cavill's new contract includes Superman appearances. 0 contracts mentions in the actual body of the article. You don't believe me? Go and look it up yourself, but definitely have ad blocker on because you need to in order to be able to read Geekosity Mag at any actual kind of efficiency. This is what I'm talking about. There's absolutely 0 mention of new contract. There's no mention of it anywhere. Mikey doesn't mention it in his article. It's not mentioned as being sourced by him in any capacity. It's not sourced by small screen. It's mentioned 3 times. In fact, the whole title is mentioned 3 times because that again is tied into Google SEO. What we're talking about here is a guy that is appropriately using, if you want my honest opinion, how Google Analytics work in order to be able to get this out to the most amount of people in order to get the highest amount of views on that particular article because of all the ads on there. By the way, a lot of anime adult content, if you look at it mobile, kind of weird, but it's all a way to make money. And that to me is a problem. And that's why this whole situation is relatively bunk. So moving on, just to go back to this particular post here by James Gunn, he says, I'm not sure if you're purposely lying or being taken advantage of. Okay. But he goes on. This is that no one knows what's happening at DC Studios right now other than me and Peter. So let's talk about DC Studios for a quick second, right? According to Wikipedia here, DC Studios is an American film and television studio that is a division of Warner Brothers, which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Discovery. It is dedicated to the production of films, series, and animations based on characters from DC Comics, right? James Gunn and Peter Safran assumed control of the company on November 1st, 2022. Previously, Walter Hamada was a president of DC Films from 2018 until his departure in 2022, all right? So what we know here is that when in April of 2022, Warner Media and Discovery formed Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav wanted to restructure all of DC Entertainment, having it be very similar to Marvel. And then in July, when Toby Emmerich stepped down, the group was restructured to give DC Films, Warner Brothers Pictures, New Line Cinema, and Warner Animation Group respective leadership that would then answer to David Zaslav. They would be their own verticals. These would be individually run entities underneath the Warner Brothers banner or Warner Brothers Discovery banner in order to kind of cut out the middleman and have David Zaslav kind of oversee everything. And this is a big part of what went on. This is why James Gunn and Peter Safran are taking over the company. That is what is happening here. Okay. So anyway, just to even give you guys more info, shortly after Hamada left the CEO position, which was October 21st of 2022, James Gunn and Peter Safran were revealed to then take over the studio under its new rebrand of DC Studios. the duo was tasked to oversee production on films, television, and animation under the DC label, reporting directly to David Zaslav, all while also working alongside, but, and this is the thing to remember here, independently of heads of other divisions. Meaning that right now, anything that's going to be happening in regards to DC, anything that's going to be happening in regards to any of this stuff is going to go through James Gunn and Peter Safran. They're the ones that are going to be making the agreements. They're the ones that are going to be arguing for what's going to happen. Their idea is what's going to push things going forward. And that's exactly what we have to remember, especially when we talk about someone like Mikey Sutton versus James Gunn. Who are you going to believe? A person that I've already just proven to you has falsely, very unethically used the word contract to discuss something that simply doesn't exist, then being called out by the head of the studio because that guy is like, hey, listen, we got to chomp down on this stuff. We have to stop this stuff from coming out. Or you're going to believe a guy who just sits at home and makes crap up on the internet, because that's effectively where we find ourselves when it comes to Mikey Sutton and Geekosity Mag and Sil Abdul and anyone out there still trying to push these DC narratives. Now, I can tell you guys personally, I can tell you guys this. I've known Mikey for a couple of years. We're no longer cool. There's a reason for that, which I can get to at a later date. But Mikey is very, very, very predicated on attention. He loves it when he gets positive attention. He thrives on it. He feeds on it. That's exactly what moves him, what motivates him. He told me a long time ago that Snyder Cut content does not move numbers for his website. And he still ran with it using you could say like a subsidiary of his own, which would be Sil Abdul, kind of a hype guy coming in to run this stuff. They built up this DC brand over on YouTube of all the scoops over there. And now James Gunn is coming out and he's kneecapping that constantly. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, the news you should trust-ish would be Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, the respected trades, and James Gunn himself. Anyone who runs a fan site that is trying to get you to believe that they know something generally probably doesn't, or to at least take it with a grain of salt and not buy into it too much. And I mean this for literally everybody. But at least now we have a person who oversees DC content that is going to come out and keep things on the straight and narrow and keep people honest as to not falsely build expectations. And that is one of the reasons why I love James Gunn and why I'm very excited to see more out of what he brings to the table. But anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know. I'll see you guys later, and peace out.